Hey guys, welcome back, and today we have another week of box office, so let's get into it. Up first, we have & Juliet, which went from 91% to 97% this week, and 1,073,850 to 1,202,915. I think with the stunt casting of Charlie D'Amelio, and I don't know if that other guy came in, but there was another stunt casting guy that came in, who is coming in. We're not going to know its fate until after the holidays. And even then, I don't know, because with the stunt casting, it might hold up. But again, & Juliet is one of the shows that is only kind of alive because of stunt casting. The Louis Armstrong musical is doing pretty successful. Last week, 83%. This week, 82%. And 719K to 705K. If it can maintain these numbers until, the end of the year, and then it can sort of do these numbers in January and February, they'll be fine. I personally believe that it will make it till the Tonys. It wasn't doing as horrible as maybe Happy Ending, for example, in its previews. It wasn't doing good by any means. But as long as it has a 7 or 6 in front of it, it should be fine. Cabaret went from 93% to 91%, and 1,218,328 to 1,192,168. Much better numbers, but again, I still think it will close in March. These very costly revivals with big stars are not a good long-term business plan, because these stars don't last, and the stars you get to replace them are just not as big. Death Becomes Her is a mammoth hit, selling out at 100% capacity, and 1,366,007 to this week's 1,475,403. And the average ticket is pretty low at 123, but it's a much bigger theater than a lot of the other theaters, so their ticket price can be lower, and they can still do 1,475,000. I think that this is gonna get to maybe even 2 million, maybe. By the time the end of the year comes, it's going to do fantastic over this next month. It's done fantastic. It's a great show. So I suspect that it will have a very good January and February, so well in December that it will be able to take those hits. And even then, I think it might do 1,075,319, 1,100,000. So much softer numbers, but still numbers that are sustainable for a production that is so costly. And it will definitely have a run similar to School of Rock or Waitress. Alf is, I don't know how the show's doing so well. 94% this week, 87% last week, 1,826,498 last week, and 2,033,784. This is coming back next season. I don't know what theater, but it is coming back. GYPSY, 95% to 96%, and 1,602,650 to 1,818,235. I think this is a fantastic revival in terms of box office. As long as Audra's in the production, it's going to do well. My question is, when Audra leaves, will they get a new star, or are they going to close it? I would just close it. I don't know if they're going to recoup, because it is probably a very costly production, but they are doing gangbuster numbers. Hadestown went from 92% to 99%, and 784K to 904K. Again, we won't know Hadestown's fate until January and February. It's not looking great. I think that there's basically no big stunt casting coming up. And again, Hadestown would have closed probably back in 24 or 23 if not for stunt casting, because without stunt casting, they don't do so good. But again, I think they could get an additional stunt cast. They could get an original cast member to come back. So I don't think it's going to close in 2025, but it could close in January of 26. But it could make it till 2026. We've said Hadestown's going to close. It's on the edge. It's on the verge. And then it comes back every single time. And it is, compared to other shows, very inexpensive. But again, even an inexpensive show has its limits. Hamilton, sold out with 100%, and 2,030,772 last week to this week's 2,177,119. Hell's Kitchen went from 95% to 96%, and 1,492,991 to 1,487,941. Again, a good week for Hell's Kitchen by all accounts, but I think the loss of Shoshona Bean has affected the box office just a little bit, but again, this is going to be here for many more years to come. Maybe Happy Ending is going to have a happy ending, I think. This is its best week yet. 87% last week, 95% this week, 682 last week, 764K this week, exactly where it needs to be. This might have been its first profitable week, and the average ticket is at $101. What a comeback. We don't see this with most smaller shows, you know, I mean, but luckily I think the big two factors as to why maybe Happy Ending has had its comeback is because of the out of this universe amazing reception that it got from critics, and they changed the marketing, social media marketing, to the people that do the Great Gatsby account, and I'm seeing maybe Happy Ending post way more, and it's way more engaging content. They just announced a cast album, so I think they're doing all the necessary things on a business side. I also think that Darren Criss is a draw, if not a smaller one than they probably would have thought. Now, having said that, this show could definitely still fail. I think that, you know, it could have a terrible January and February and close, but again, if it can get and stay, if it can maintain this momentum, stay in the 7s, have an 8, have a 9, and even have like even a week of $1 million, I think I will be able to say they will make it through whatever they get dealt with in the next 2 months and make it till the Tonys and the inevitable Best Musical nomination. But again, this is a crucial month for maybe Happy Ending, but all the signs are good, and the momentum's going up. You know, in a perfectly realistic universe of like cold hard business, this needs to have and should have an 8 in front of it. But even if it goes to like 750 or 740, that's still okay. But overall, maybe Happy Ending is the comeback of the season. And again, I think a lot of that's because the community has kind of gathered around it in a way that the community hasn't gathered around a show ever, honestly. And I think, again, the further we get away from 2020, the better these smaller shows do. And so I'm glad, and again, Broadway needs these new small original pieces. But again, I still sustain and ascertain that new musicals have a harder time and are so much more riskier in this post-COVID universe. And then ultimately investing in a new kind of Broadway where, you know, it's not, the culture of it is not IPs and movie musicals, but just original works, is something that's worth investing in, and honestly where I think that these new shows could migrate to, with the hope being that people would have a thirst for new musicals in New York City, and then they would come back. Moulin Rouge is doing pretty well, 96% last week, 95% this week, 1,346,980 last week, and 1,336,128 this week. They're getting Boy George to come back, so I think they will make it to at least 2026, but again, without the stunt casting, they do very poorly. I mean, after Aaron left in October, their numbers were quite horrific, and without stunt casting, they would be closed. 6, 85% to 88%, and 926K to 904K. And again, I think that after the holidays, it should do pretty solid. I don't think it's going to go to like 4s or 5s, but even if it did, it could definitely last. It could take those hits and go with those numbers for a couple of years. Not good, and it would definitely be a sign that it's going to close, but, you know, it's a very inexpensive production to put on. But again, all inexpensive productions have their limits. Suffs is going out with a bang, 98% to 101%, and 1,012,182 to 1,051,569. Average ticket 133, top ticket 348. And this is a great example of good business. They knew they weren't going to get these good numbers in January and February. They saw the writing on the wall. They could have maybe extended. They could have said, you know what, We're gonna go to January and February, but they said we're gonna close. They are getting the rewards of closing in January because they are seeing a post-closing boost, and I also think that the election had something to do with it. Sunset Boulevard almost got to 2 million. 93% to 95% this week, and 1,832,884 to 1,900,668. Whoo! The show is getting to 2 mil this month. Put 100K on it. It's gonna do well in January and February. It might be like 1,500,000 minus, but that's still gonna be fantastic. Swept Away had a much better week. 81% to 99%, and 540K to 657K. Now, I will say that the box office for Swept Away, for its extension, is not doing super good, so I think that we might see slips, but it doesn't really matter because it's closing. The Book of Mormon continues to be a huge success, and I don't cover it a lot, but I just want to give you guys a sense of how it's doing. This week, it performed to 98% and 1,228,417, a clear sign that it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Great Gatsby is doing great. I mean, it's doing fantastic. 95% last week, 96% this week, average ticket of 132, top ticket of 524, and 1,460,215 to 1,568,955. Let me take a breath. Whew. Great Gatsby. I think it is because Eva and Jeremy are leaving, but with numbers this big, it's not going to have a huge fall where it's going to close. Point being, Great Gatsby is going to be here for years. The Notebook ended strong with a 1,094,299 and selling out. The Outsiders sold out once again, going from 1,527,290 to 1,587,269. And they're doing a ton of press, and it's weird because, like, they're doing so well. But anyways, and then Wicked continues to be the highest grossing show with 2,878,086 in a capacity of 100%. Very quickly, Wicked is at 525.3 million as of December 15th. So again, domestically 359, internationally 166. It's not done very good internationally, but again with a sing-along, it's a slow burn, and that's kind of getting proven with the continued success of Wicked week to week. Obviously, it didn't have a huge... I thought it would get to 600 by now, but with a sing-along with Christmas, next week it's going to have a 6 in front of it, probably. With a sing-along and holidays, I suspect a $200 million increase to 800 million. So they might finish off with 800 million, but with, the Oscar noms and the wins, I could see getting to $1 billion still. I still think it's going to be a slow burn. Greatest Showman didn't get to its final number by March, but again, my standing of that, if it doesn't get to $1 billion, it's gonna be, obviously it's one of the most successful movie musicals. It's gonna end with probably a 7 or an 8 in front of it. It's still gonna be a financial success, a win, great. But the bar's not that high. And then also, with Wicked being a $1 billion musical franchise, it's a bit of a disappointment. But let me know your thoughts. Like, sub, comment, peace.